Thanks so much for joining us, and thanks so much for being here today. It's great to see a lot of people who care as much about observability as I do, or at least almost as much as I do in the room. Thank you for joining us. We're going to talk today about our AI journey at N26 and what it takes to sort of understand how developers work with AI, and then we're going to try to go one step further and try to unpack how we've determined which teams are really thriving in their development journeys in an AI-driven world. And maybe some of the teams that are still struggling there. A little bit about us. Hello, everybody. My name is Jacob. I'm the lead SRE. I'm in a team called Observability. We focus on observability, and we wake up every morning and brush our teeth and think about observability. And we try to bring it to teams like Akhil's, who's the lead engineer for a product team, what we call a product team, and he'll tell you a little bit more about what exactly he does later. But first, I want to kind of set a baseline so you understand where we're at. And I think many of you in this room might be in this same scenario that we're at right now, where the simple adoption of the AI tooling right now is a key outcome. That's how it is in our organization, and that's presented to me as an observability guy as a problem, because we have a core fundamental question. How do we actually measure the developer productivity? So you're going to adopt the AI, but then somebody needs to be able to say whether or not the adoption of this AI tooling into our workflows, into our software development life cycles is actually having an impact. So first, we need to understand where we're at. And like any person, any engineer who came to age in an open source world, I'm sure you learned open source tooling when you were coming up as an engineer. I didn't try to build it from scratch. I looked at what was already out there. And what's great is there's already this thing called DORA, sometimes called the DevOps metrics, which did a ton of research and showed a ton of great results by looking at these critical outcomes inside your organization. The first one that we look at is deployment frequency. This is extremely interesting because it has to do with team velocity. How often you're deploying is a pretty good proxy, or let me say this, it's the best proxy that we have for how your features are coming out the door.
Definitely.
I'm still trying to convince your product manager that it matters, but that's okay. The next thing that we want to look at is commit lifecycle. Now we're digging into the nitty-gritty of what teams like Akhil's really care about, because this is what they're feeling every day. Now I'm trying to get inside the mind of the developer and try to figure out where they're spending their effort, their energy, and their resources of brain power. But I need controls on that. It's not enough just to deploy quickly and spend not a lot of time coding. If you're just deploying something that doesn't work or interrupts what your customers are expecting from you, then we need to measure that too. DORA gives us the answers with a change failure rate. You introduce a change, it impacts your customers, we call that a failure. And we measure that. That way we can control and we can understand if you're still performing highly. And then finally, what I would call my North Star as an observability guy is to understand how fast our teams can recover from these things. Because that's going to tell me if I'm building the right tooling, if I'm introducing the right tools in the software development lifecycle, to give these guys the power that they need to make the changes that our customers are expecting, to get the features out the door, and make sure that there's stability. We're a bank, right? So the money's got to flow. So we started out with a fundamental problem. How do we get this information? Datadog has a product for us, but we need to give them the information that they need. Well, the simple solution with Datadog, let's just send it to the API. Then that would look like this, and we're done, right? Just that easy.
Easy peasy.
At the end of the day, there are some interesting things that happen. All of that sort of block around N26 is hiding a lot of complexity. And when you have complexity, you need to build in resilience. So it really wasn't that easy. And the other problem that we're having is these data points were actually relatively sparse. Datadog takes in trillions of metrics, but only billions of events. And we were starting to send events. The solution is something that my colleague Ivan drove and did a great talk on last year, and was built on something we call event-driven architecture at N26. So now let's break it down just a little bit. And I'm not going to get too nitty-gritty. If you want the hard details, come talk to me, and I'll point you to Yvonne, and we'll talk about the real engineering stuff behind this. But essentially, it starts with a person down here on the left side. That person submits their PR, and that information is really rich already in GitHub. From there, Datadog is able to pull a lot of that really critical information about the software development and visualize it for us, because it's right there in GitHub. When did your PR start? How long did it take you to get to PR? How long is the review going on? They can tell us about that. Now we need to move on to the next thing. So you've got your PR. In our case, every commit to master goes to production. So from there, our deploy system is involved. But here's where we sort of added the complexity to give ourselves more resilience. The commits are consumed by our deploy system. This is a little Argo guy down here. And that deployment event actually makes its way into Kafka. This is the critical change. Now we can base many things. We can consume that event with lots of different consumers, enrich it, and then move it on to the next step. For our purposes, we built a custom microservice that consumes the deployment event, enriches it, and then sends it as a DORA event, something that has context about where it came from and why it's important, into Datadog. And now we've finally gotten to the last step, because even though we've got a DORA event, we're missing something. We're missing key organizational information, and this is where our IDP comes in. We can map and we can correct services and teams. We can standardize the name fields and understand where it exists in our hierarchy by implementing things with Backstage. And what we end up with is exactly what we were aiming for. DORA metrics that mean a lot to us. We've got the deploy information, we've got the commit information, we can understand change failures through our incidents, and ultimately we've got MTTR, my North Star, as an observability engineer. In the end of the day, were we successful? Well, I'm going to judge that by my customer engagement. Here I have a customer coming to me, telling me that, oh my gosh, you're getting all these DORA metrics, but I have some questions about the accuracy of those numbers. I know, because the process of getting them and the process of developing the software is already super complex. But here's the key success. They were able to use these numbers to drive decisions in the organization. And what did they mean by that? Well, that's why I've got Akhil here, because he exactly was able to use these numbers that we got from DORA, visualized in Datadog, to talk about his team's journey on adopting AI tooling for software development.
Thanks, Jacob. Hello, everyone. My name is Akhil. I work as a lead engineer for N26. Our team works on the home screen of the app, so basically the screen where everyone lands when you log in, and where potentially the screen where most users engage with. So today, I would like to maybe share with you how we use DORA metrics that Jacob just talked about to understand from a developer's point of view how we use these metrics to measure the engineering productivity, especially after our AI tooling adoption. So everyone knows, most of you already are using AI to some extent. Well, we know that we could get some productivity gains by adopting AI tooling, but we want to measure it. We cannot just guess that, OK, we are doing better. We need to prove it with concrete numbers. So, our hypothesis was that adopting AI tooling can help us. But before that, let's first understand what our team does and what our challenges are as a team. So the home screen of the app is where the most user engagement happens. So naturally, every time we launch a product, we would like to place it on the home screen to drive more engagement to these products. So N26 as a bank has a ton of products, and so we constantly keep integrating with other teams at N26 so that they can have some presence on the home screen. So this creates some constant drive to deliver things faster and at the same time maintain a very good quality. So the challenges we have are we wanted to deliver more frequently, at the same time also reduce time to market for each feature that we are developing. And also we wanted to spend less time on our code refactors and some cleanup jobs. So naturally, our first thought is maybe AI tooling can help us with all of this. So throughout this talk, I'll be looking at some numbers, especially from Datadog, to evaluate if the AI tooling is really helping us with this. But in the end, we will try to answer a few key questions. What are the productivity gains that we're getting from AI tooling? Can we measure them in concrete numbers? And are there still some gaps that can be filled? And one last question that we'll be answering is AI tooling helping everyone? So let's take a look. So earlier this year, in June, N26 started widely adopting AI by using GitHub Copilot, especially in the area of coding. And our hypothesis was simple. AI tooling could boost developer productivity and helps us develop features faster. So let's look at some concrete numbers on what Copilot did to us. So since June, the Copilot suggested over 814,000 code suggestions, out of which we have accepted around 170K suggestions. So we are averaging at about 21% acceptance rate, which is pretty good, which means that we probably are programming maybe 21% faster than we were before. So was this translating into any business impact, or how are developers actually using these suggestions? And again, Datadog helps us to monitor this. Naturally, there is a good integration between Copilot and Datadog, thanks to the observability team. So we saw that Kotlin, Python, SQL, TypeScript are the most suggested languages, which kind of reflects the internal code base of N26. So no surprises there. And we are also using JetBrains and VS Code as our primary development environment. So there are no surprises there. This is what we expected. However, there were some surprises. While we are using Kotlin, Python, and TypeScript as our primary languages for development, that's not where developers are mostly interacting with the AI. For example, here you can see that FreeMarker, GraphQL, Protobuf, these are the languages that the developers probably not very familiar with or least familiar with. And when I saw this one, I was confused. But then it made sense. Developers are using these AI agents to fill the gaps where they're not really familiar with writing FreeMarker template or GraphQL queries. These are probably the languages that they're least familiar with, and using AI agents to fill these gaps. And that's the idea of the AI agents. We fill the gaps where we lack the knowledge. And this proves the point, and this is a really great insight for us. So, but did we get better overall? So we saw that we adopted AI. We saw that we are getting a lot of code suggestions. We saw that we are accepting around 21% of the suggestions, and we are also filling the other gaps where we don't have a lot of knowledge. So, but are these translating into any meaningful business impact? Data is great, but results matter. So let's see if our productivity actually jumped. So the first metric that we looked at is our deployment velocity. So as Jacob rightly pointed out before, one of the metric through which we can track how often we are delivering features is how often we are deploying. It's a proxy metric. It's not exactly one-on-one, but it's something that we can interpret to understand how often our code changes are making it to live. So our deployment velocity definitely went up significantly after Copilot adoption. So this means that we are not only coding faster, but we are also shipping faster. So Datadog, using the DORA metrics, as you can see in the dashboard, gave us some hard numbers. So here you can see that our deployment frequencies overall went by 45%, and at the same time, our change lead times, which is basically the time from when we create the changes until they make live, it went by 20%. went down by 20%. So this clearly shows us that while we are coding more, we are also shipping our features much faster. So we have seen where AI really helped us, but can Datadog also show us where we can improve? Is there still room for improvement? So AI did solve some bottlenecks, but not all. So where are we still getting stuck? While our overall lead times got better, the DORA breakdown shows something interesting. Our review times are still longer, so it's about a day and a half. Again, talking about my specific team. Well, AI is helping with the code generation. Humans are still reviewing the code, and this is, again, one of the bottlenecks. And Datadog really helps us understand how the breakdown looks like. So that would be our next frontier, to understand how we can improve on the code review times. Now, we have seen how AI helped us with our productivity gains. We have also seen in which areas we still need some room for improvement. But is AI adoption helping everyone at N26? Are all teams benefiting from it? Is the positive trend a common trait across all teams? Maybe not. So we have seen some teams. We're seeing here are the deployment frequencies and the change lead times. They don't agree with our original hypothesis, which is that we need to deliver faster. But here you can see that either we are stagnated, we are deploying, the deployment frequency remained the same, in some cases went down, and the change lead time definitely went up. So not only those, but the numbers also show a clear gap. The change failure rate went up for some teams, so is the time to restore from the failures. These are definitely not good numbers, but doesn't necessarily mean that this is bad data. This is data. So we need to interpret this data in a way to understand how we investigate this. So these metrics are good, so this leaves us with some data to investigate further. So what do we do next? So currently, we are focused on using more AI. Clearly, we saw that while some teams, we saw some metrics that do not agree with the original hypothesis, but most teams are benefiting from AI. We are deploying more frequently, our lead times got faster, so this is clearly a gain. So we would like to keep adopting AI, and in addition, we would also like to address where Datadog showed us that there is a room for improvement, code reviews, for example. So we will be exploring maybe more tooling or more ways of working improvements to improve in this area and make our workflows even faster. But at the same time, we will continuously keep measuring our metrics using Datadog and DORA metrics to make sure that we are on the right path. So in addition, we would also like to brainstorm why some teams are not benefiting from AI, while most teams are, and fill in any gaps with these teams. So to wrap up, most teams benefit from AI, but every team accelerates at different paces. But what's key is measuring it. And Datadog shows us what's working and what's not. But AI has definitely transformed our development speed, but Datadog metrics are what lets us prove the impact. But the journey is still ongoing, and we are excited to keep the bar high. Before I say thank you, I would like to thank a few of our colleagues, Ivan, Sebastian, and the whole of the observability team that had these metrics on Datadog, which helps us measure whatever we saw today. So thank you, everyone, and have a nice rest of the day.
Thanks very much.